Hey everyone, my name is Amanda. I am the face behind Frquncy. I thought it would be great to just come on here, talk a little bit about where Frquncy came from, maybe a little bit about me, my thoughts on life, my experience in Bali for a month meditating, obtaining my meditation teacher training. This feels a little bit more personal. I know a lot of people are like, what are you doing? Where did this come from? So about me, a little of my background. I've been an interior designer for the last 14-ish years. I worked for a company here for about 13 of those, doing mostly corporate design. So interesting enough, and I've known this because this was part of my job, is change is always hard for humans. Um, we don't do well with drastic change, which kind of brought on Frquncy, and I'll get into that. A lot of my job obtained creating environments that worked better for people or businesses, how companies wanted to run, but the change from how they were doing things and the change to the newer, better version was always a challenge. And we literally had a system called change management, and we would coach people on how to progress from one thing to the next. And I think this is really applicable to general life. Is most of the time when change comes our way, we don't deal with it well. This idea that we don't have control over how things happen and everything's happening to us, and we are stuck to just face it head on. And I think a lot of times life does present itself that way. But we also have opportunity to turn inwards and reflect and be mindful about the changes we want to make. I think we are very capable of creating our own change. And that seems to be more powerful than having life do it for us. So Frquncy came about, I'd say, over a year ago. I had the summer off to, I was fortunate enough to be able to take the time off away from work to look after my dog who was dying of bone cancer. And this, like, why would you take time off? I had already suffered and lost a soul earlier that year, unexpectedly. And sort of the accumulation of how this went. My dog had been one of my pillars and strength for the last 10 years of my life through a lot of loss. A lot of, I hate using the word trauma, but a lot of different things that had happened to me that I wasn't able to cope with. And fortunately, animals are really good at just being present. We can learn a lot from our pets and our animals. They are good at being present. They don't need much. They love us unconditionally. They are a good reflection of things that we need to do for ourselves. And so I had the summer off to look after him, and I was very grateful for that. But it gave me a chance to actually pause long enough to realize that I was so out of aligned with my life, a life that I had thought I had chosen, that I had built, and it needed, what I was doing needed to change. I found myself in pieces once again. And I was like, there's got to be a better way to be more at peace, not to be able to handle, life's circumstances, maybe, or how do I say this? Life throws challenges at us. we can either handle them with grace, or we can, like I have done for a lot of years, buried myself in fitness, buried myself in my work. Interesting enough, the more I worked, the more work that came my way. So it was kind of this loop of like not dealing, uh, here's more work, not dealing, then being resentful of the thing, and then going around. And then, um, yeah, like I would say that I maybe my coping skills of not feeling anything that I needed to feel was avoidance. And I buried myself in projects and other things and side hustles and whatever I could find so that I didn't have to feel the uncomfortable things that I needed to. A lot of it was loss. A lot of it was mistreatment, betrayal. And I found myself last year in a place where I was just tired of running from myself, from life, and life was continuing to happen to me. I am a true believer that your internal reality is a reflection of your external. And let me give you an example. So I think this was a trend a couple years ago, maybe even last year. I'm a bit out of the loop, but the lucky girl syndrome. If you haven't heard of this, the idea is that you prime yourself to say, well, I'm the luckiest girl or boy. Everything's working out for me. The universe has my back. God has my back. And you've primed your mind to look for evidence for that narrative. And the interesting part is the ego always likes to be right. So this is really effective in that you will, not that things don't happen to you, not that bad things can't happen to you in that day, but you will only focus on the good. You will focus on the wins that day because you've primed yourself for that. And so with the idea of frequency, if we can, my idea was if I can create stillness within myself and maybe find some peace, my external world would either reflect that back to me. I would find more peace in my life, or I would make more choices that would create peace. And last year, don't do what I have done. I really took this to heart. I blew up my life. I do not regret it. I left my corporate job. I had no B plan. I didn't know if I was going to stay in the interior design industry. I really had no clue. Frquncy was just a mind idea of how do I create something that is more peaceful and has more meaning, and then maybe I can share it with other people. I have been on this healing journey for some years, and I've found many things that have worked for me to understand better who I am, and also have helped me bring up emotions that I wasn't dealing, and also taught me to like feel. Interesting enough, I have probably spent most of my adult life not feeling. Uh, Through circumstances, I really just buried everything down and just plowed through to the point where I was very disconnected and numbed out. And last year, really, through the things that I've been working on and trying to meditate and trying to feel and starting to get better at it, but life was still happening, and I was confused, and I was like, okay, you have all these external things in your life that are causing so much havoc. Let's start there. Let's just rid yourself of that. Do not recommend this. This is like, have a plan, but I was trusting the process, and I just knew that I was meant to do something different and maybe share a little bit more as to what I've done in my life and the things that have worked for me to help me connect back to myself. So Frquncy kind of was born from that. It initially started with, maybe there's products that can help create calm. I know lots of people like baths, and aromatherapy was one of the things and I still probably will incorporate that. I haven't ruled that out. The meditation course that I took in Bali kind of came about randomly. I'd been doing some meditation over the last few years and found it hard, but effective when I could get into a rhythm of it. For many years, I used fitness as a way to just release energy. And I think that's an effective way, but to the point where I was using it to just avoid feeling. Like it was just dissipating out, and that's fine, but I was still burying the things that I was uncomfortable with, or things that weren't working, or the loss or grief. So it numbed me out. It gave me something to focus my energy on, which, I mean, it was a healthy coping mechanism versus, I know lots of people lean into other substances, and I was fortunate enough that I didn't do that. But I still was avoiding everything. And this course came up, and I was like, I think this is the thing I need to do. So went to Bali. There was 15 of us, 14, 15 of us women. It just happened to be women who took a course for 18, 19 days, and we just meditated. And it was like 13-hour days of meditation, yoga, and lessons. And I had done such a good job through the last half a dozen years trying to mind-splain my way and learning all I could about why I am the way I am without feeling it. Like I was trying to, I call it mind-splaining, but I was trying to understand through my mind the feeling that I needed to release without actually feeling it. Like I was like, oh, this is anxiety, and this is why this is happening, and these things happen to me, and that's why this is here. And I was so worked up in the understanding instead of actually just taking a minute and being like, this feels uncomfortable. What is this? Thank you for showing me. Thank you for being here. We're safe now. We're okay. And this course really taught me how to get in there. And I will be honest, the first week I was very uncomfortable. Not in the sense of like, I didn't feel like I shouldn't be there, but in the sense that my mind was racing. It was really heavy. My body hurt in so many places. I think part of that was from sitting on the floor, but also there was so much stuff that I needed to release. The first week was really uncomfortable. And after that, it just kind of settled in, and you got into the routine, and we would get up really early and we would do yoga and meditation. And it was so powerful that the best way to explain the energy that I came home with was, where in life, at some point in your life, and I hope that most of you have experienced this, but at some point in life, you are young enough that you don't have the responsibility and the weight of adulthood quite yet. But you have the optimism and this excitement and this looking forward to all opportunities. Like literally the world is your oyster. You can make any choice you want and become anything that you want. And that's what I came home with. And the interesting part is I'm in my later 30s. And I had that feeling of I had just blew up my life. I didn't know where I was going. And yet I had, in that uncertainty, there was more clarity for me that anything was possible. It's not like, oh, how is this going to work out? And what am I going to do? It was, I have so much opportunity to create something amazing. And now that I'm in my 30s, I also have life experience. I have the things that I've gone through to get me to where I feel that I should be. So meditation, which is why Frquncy, we're starting with that. I think there's so much power in being more present in yourself and connecting to yourself. Society here has created a really good way of us to disconnect, to ignore intuition, to not feel in the moment. And we rush through life, notifications, emails, busy schedules, whatever you fill your life with, TV, Netflix, whatever. I'm not saying anything's wrong with any of those things. This is the world that we live in Western culture. But we are so disconnected and we're so dysregulated, and we don't realize it. Because I'm of the generation before a lot of the technology came in, I just remember being so present in my early to late teens and maybe 20s before a lot of this stuff came out, and actually remembering the things that happened because I was there. Like, I was connecting to the people in the room. I was experiencing the thing. I was feeling the feelings. And now we are so much in front of our phones that we can't even have the conversation with the person who's at dinner in front of us. And I continually watch couples. We go out for dinner with friends, and I make a habit to put my phone down. And I look at couples at the restaurant, and both of them are on their phones. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's your choice, if you want to share information or about your day or show photos and stuff, the beautiful thing about technology is that it keeps people connected to a point. But if we are using it in place of connection to the people who are in front of us, I think there's a problem. And so a lot of that, though, is if we can't connect to ourselves, how do we connect to other people? And the same thing that we learned when we were in Bali is if we can't hold space for ourselves, how do we hold space for other people? How do we allow people to have reactions and emotions and not feed into that? You can be mindful enough to allow people to have their opinion and disagreements and react to whatever in life, and you don't have to absorb that energy. You don't have to fix that. You don't have to be responsible for how they feel. That's not me saying that you don't need to be kind to other people and everything. We're getting a thunderstorm, so you're going to hear that. Frequency for me is a little bit of a journey on finding inner peace and stillness and more presence. Having lost so many people, having started my life over many times, I have missed a lot of years with the people who should have been here. And I've missed a lot of years burying myself in not being present and avoiding and thinking that, this thing will bring me more happiness and this achievement and this title and this whatever. And the truth is it didn't. And I am finding more stillness in my life, and I'm creating my own opportunities to find peace. I'm choosing things in my life that create more peace. That doesn't mean that I'm avoiding anything that disrupts that. I'm just being more mindful of, okay, baseline. Will this be something that enhances my life because it brings me more stillness, it brings me more presence, it brings me more peace? Or is this something that is sort of an old patterning of me chasing things and will eventually lead to less peace or less time with those I want to be present with? And this isn't always, you're going to say, Amanda, well, I have all these responsibilities and blah, 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 and this and that. And please look after your responsibilities. That is not what I'm saying. I think that if we can connect to ourselves and listen to what we need from ourselves, not from the external world, not from people validating us, not from materialistic things, if we can listen more internally and feel what we're going through I think we will come out the other end more peaceful people, more mindful, and just a better society all around, more balanced. I haven't figured out balance in my life through running this company, and I actually still do interior design work. It has followed me outside the doors of where I used to work, and I'm grateful for the people that I get to work with. I still love design. I didn't love how I was burying myself in it to avoid things, but I still love the process of design and I still love creating. And I think this Frquncy allows me opportunity to also create experience for people to come back to themselves. That's the whole point, coming home to self. We all are worthy of our own affection and compassion. Somewhere along the way, we have lost that. In Bali, we talked about this, as babies, we are given care and food and love because we just exist. The pure purpose of existing. And we need those people to look after us. But somewhere along the way, we lose that and we start to get our worth from what we can provide or who we are or our titles or the things that we own. And at least for me, my experience is trying to find my worth in just existing. And I can honestly say I haven't found it yet, but I'm learning. And I think if we can give ourselves that grace, we can have more compassion. We can hold space better for other people. If we are so content with who we are and we love ourselves to the whole, and I think meditation is a really good part. Healing is hard and meditation is hard because lots of times our mind and our internal environment is really rocky and it's really dark. And there are things that we are holding on to, fear, shame, things that we have done that we're not happy with, maybe old memories, things that have been done to us. It can be really dark in there, and sitting with yourself and the quietness of yourself is not easy. And I'm not claiming that it is. I'm not saying meditation is the perfect answer. I'm saying it is a tool to use to connect back to self. I think there are many tools we can do or use. Breath work, like talk therapy, if that's your thing. There are so many things that we can do. And my goal with this company is to bring about other things that I know that have worked for me to be able to feel what's going on internally and not necessarily have to understand why I'm feeling it. I think, like I said before, is I've done a really good job of understanding this background story. I've created the story, or whether it's the actual thing, and not being able to feel it. And I've done Reiki, I've done sound baths, we are getting a beautiful storm right now. It is pouring. I've done a lot of different things because I felt very broken inside. And this is long before last year. The external world has shown me many, many times that I am broken. And because that's the story that I believed, it showed up for me. And people treated me that way. And I put myself in situations that showed me that I wasn't enough. And I am trying to find ways that people can come back to themselves and remember that they are worthy of their own love and compassion. So we will have classes. We have classes right now for meditation. I have meditations online. Most of them all of them are guided. So if you're new to meditation, that's a great way to start. If you can't sit and just feel, a guided meditation is a great way to start. I'm looking into alternative Other meditations, so dynamic meditation was something that I really enjoyed in Bali. It was a lot of that jumping and screaming and waving around, and that brought up more stored emotions internally and actually allowed for release. And it looks weird and it looks scary, but it is incredibly effective. I think breathwork does a really good job of this, as well as we don't always have to understand the attachment to the emotion. I think, myself included, I always needed a story as to why I was feeling something. And I think through some of these other tools, you don't always need to understand that story. It's about moving that energy. Similar to after a day of sitting and you feel sluggish and like you need to move your body, exercise is a great way to expend energy. And a lot of these other tools are great ways to move the emotional energy inside. It is hard. It is hard work. But I will bring in other things. I'm learning as you're learning. I think growing and learning together in community is a lot more effective than trying to do it on your own. We have built a society, or at least Western cultures build a society, where you keep everything quiet and you don't talk about it and you struggle through it. And at the end of your life, that's what it is. Like, people either are miserable or they're happy of what they've done. And we don't pause long enough to actually realize that we're struggling. I think that's part of it. A lot of us aren't self-aware to know why we are, or how we're struggling. So I think this mental health movement, calling it a movement, but mental health in general, we're getting better at talking about it, not necessarily understanding it. But I think there are so many things that if you do it in community, you're not alone, and you can have other people who've gone through similar things to relate to. And I think we can move and grow together. So that's my goal. I also want to make connections. Like, the power of stillness and finding yourself, it's a soul journey, but it's nice to do it along other people. And everybody has things that have worked for them, and there's not a cookie cutter plan, but being able to share that with everyone is powerful. So I'm sure you've heard me talk long enough. This is a little bit of a shorter conversation. I just wanted to get on here, introduce myself, talk a little bit about Frquncy, my trip in Bali, and the amazing things we did there. Please DM me on Instagram or leave a comment. If there are things that you are interested in learning about, I'm likely interested in learning about too. So have you tried this? Let me know. I would love to expand sort of my knowledge base on how to connect back to myself. So I'm going to explore other education on that as well, so I can hopefully provide it, at least the knowledge, for you all. So thank you for listening. I am very grateful. Sending you all with love and light the rest of your day. Namaste.